Harmon Dobson recorded a chilling prophecy in his personal diary, stating, "This will be my big year," shortly before his private plane plummeted from the Texas sky in '67. He left a grieving widow and a single impossible command to preserve a dream that became a government-classified treasure. Comment legacy if you believe family honor outweighs cold cash. The soul of the Dobson empire was never about the simple utility of a fast food commodity, but rather the creation of a massive civic institution that defined an entire regional identity for generations of loyal consumers. Harmon Dobson reframed a roadside transaction into a profound statement of belonging by matching the scale of the American South's boldest collective ambitions. He understood that a much larger burger required a much deeper emotional connection from the hungry consumer who valued authenticity. By insisting on a 5-inch diameter patty that required 2 hands to hold, he effectively commoditized the feeling of abundance and pride. This core belief contradicted the mainstream industry tendency toward pre-formed patties and small, efficient portions for profit. He turned a roadside restaurant into a military base camp for the weary and a sanctuary for the late-night traveler. This strategic reframing changed the definition of a burger from a simple snack into a genuine meal of consequence. The orange and white A-frame buildings served as beacons of reliability in a sprawling landscape of uncertainty and change. Harmon recognized that Texans would pay more for a product that mirrored their own cultural attitude of doing things bigger. The strategic soul was further preserved by Grace Dobson, who maintained the founder's vision through decades of intense market pressure. She understood that consistency was the ultimate form of luxury in a world that was rapidly becoming standardized and impersonal. Her leadership was not based on modern business school theories, but on a quiet determination to keep a specific promise. By refusing to change what was already working, she built a moat of customer loyalty that global conglomerates simply could not buy with massive marketing budgets. This dedication turned a burger chain into a historical landmark and a government treasure. The financial engine of the Dobson Empire was built on the relentless compounding of regional market dominance and operational grit. What began as a single stand on Air Street became a machine that produced $1 million sales day by the mid-90s. This milestone was achieved through the careful replication of a singular high-quality and high-volume model. The transition from Harmon's intuitive expansion to Tom Dobson's operational scaling turned the family trade into a genuine regional powerhouse. Under Tom's leadership, the company reached its 500th location by 1995, becoming the 8th largest chain globally. This growth was funded internally by the steady cash flow generated by the fiercely loyal and growing Texas customer base. The technical genius of the business model relied on high operating leverage and the efficiency of the iconic A-frame design. These structures were not just visual landmarks, but highly optimized hubs for 24-hour service in traffic corridors. The engine maximized revenue per square foot by ensuring the kitchen never closed and the ingredients were always fresh daily. Market dominance was achieved by creating a cult following that rendered traditional advertising unnecessary compared to the national chains. The Dobson family managed to build a massive burger chain while spending only a fraction of their competitors' marketing budgets. This efficiency allowed them to reinvest their profits into better locations and higher quality ingredients for the late-night consumer. The financial machine reached its peak valuation because the family refused to sell for 7 long decades of market evolution. By maintaining stewardship through bankruptcy, scares, and leadership transitions, they created a scarcity value that was highly attractive to institutional. The machine was eventually valued in the billions precisely because it had been protected from the short-term pressures of. The financial logic was sound, but it required a patience that most modern investment firms simply do not possess today. The Dobsons understood that a brand grows slowly through the accumulation of individual experiences and late-night traditions of families. This machine was fueled by fresh beef and a bet on the cultural pride of an entire state of people. The dark night of the soul for the Dobson family arrived on April 11th, 1967, when Harmon's plane went down. He was only 53 years old, leaving behind a widow and 3 young children in a crisis. The empire he spent 17 years building was suddenly without its visionary leader and its most relentless advocate for growth. Bankers and lawyers immediately urged Grace to sell the company and take the safe path of a wealthy young widow. They believed that a woman with no management experience could not survive in the hyper-competitive world of fast food. Grace analyzed this failure of leadership and decided to build a moat of stubborn preservation around her late husband's dream. Her strategy was deceptively simple yet strategically brilliant in its refusal to follow the conventional wisdom of the boardroom elite. She hired experts to manage the parts she did not understand, while she personally guarded the culture and the values. This crucible turned a grieving wife into the chairwoman of an institution that would multiply its footprint under her watch. The failure of the founder to survive his own restless energy became the catalyst for the family's most resilient era. Grace proved that quiet determination can outperform the loud demands of the financial markets when the stakes are high enough. Please comment below on your own experiences with setbacks and how they helped you build a stronger moat of discipline. She was not groomed for the role and possessed no background in restaurant operations or corporate management when she started. What she had was a dead husband's wish and children who would need the income, and a quiet, resilient determination. Grace Dobson's strategy for running the empire was deceptively simple. Keep doing what Harmon had been doing and change nothing. The secret source of the Whataburger moat was not a patent or a supply chain, but a unique cultural identity. By becoming a Texas treasure, the brand achieved a level of customer loyalty that rivals the intensity of a religion. Competitors like McDonald's or Burger King could never replicate this bond because their brands are perceived as global and impersonal. The Dobson family secret was the management principle of staying family-owned for 69 years, despite the massive offers. This status gave customers the assurance that the chain was run by people who cared about something more than profit. The oversized burger and the 24-hour model created a service moat that satisfied a very specific regional hunger. Competitors could not easily replicate the orange and white A-frames, which had become historical landmarks in the minds of. These buildings served as a visual shorthand for a specific set of values, including freshness, quality, and local community pride. The Dobson moat was reinforced by a government classification that no other fast food chain in America could ever claim. This classification was not a metaphor but a legal reality that placed the brand in a category occupied by none. It turned the act of buying a burger into a loyalty test that residents administered to outsiders with great pride. The moat was built on the understanding that some things are simply not for sale, regardless of the current price. As the modern era arrived, the Dobson family faced the challenge of staying relevant in a hyper-consolidated industry today. They expanded their presence into states like Florida and Arizona, using strategic pivots to adapt to new demographic and markets. The branding was refreshed, and the menu was carefully expanded while the core 24-hour operating model remained intact. The strategic pivot in 2019 was the decision to sell a majority stake to BDT Capital Partners in Chicago. This move was designed to provide the institutional expertise and infrastructure needed for national expansion at a faster pace now. Data indicated that the brand could succeed far beyond Texas if it had the capital to build a modern infrastructure. The growth that followed the sale has been dramatic, with locations now exceeding 900 across the American South today. This scale allowed the company to implement professional management techniques that a family operation typically cannot support on its own. Please invite your friends to subscribe to Old Money Habits 7 for more strategic deep dives into world-famous legacies. While the financial logic of the sale was undeniably sound, many fans treated the transaction as a deep personal betrayal. The data supported the move toward institutional management for longevity. But the emotional data of the customer base suggested loss. The challenge for the new owners is maintaining the soul while aggressively expanding the footprint into markets that lack history. Succession was handled by passing the operational reins to Tom Dobson, who had learned the business from the kitchen floor. This focus on internal training ensured that the next generation understood the culture and values that gave the brand identity. The corporate constitution was unwritten, but lived through the single instruction in Harmon's will to preserve the business always. The family principles centered on measured growth rather than reckless expansion, which kept the controlling interest from being diluted early. Grace built a wall around the legacy that no competitor could breach for over 50 years of intense market competition. By keeping the company family-owned for 3 generations, they proved that a local business could compete against global corporations. However, the transition to the 4th generation brought the ultimate governance challenge of balancing financial logic with emotional family logic. The decision to sell in 2019 shattered the proof that a family could remain independent in the modern era. It revealed that even the strongest corporate constitutions can eventually be rewritten by heirs with a different view of possibility. The promise was kept for 52 years after the crash, but the 4th generation decided that selling was possible. They chose a merchant bank that specialized in family firms. This was intended to take the business to the next level while respecting the lineage that began in '67. Yet, the ownership transition remains a controversial topic among fans. The tension between preserving a dead man dream and expanding a global empire is the core conflict of legacy wealth. The Dobson family held the promise for 52 years before deciding that national growth required a new corporate structure. This shift from family stewardship to merchant bank management marks the end of a singular era in American fast food. We must ask if a brand soul can survive when the family that built it decides to finally cash out. The burgers are still big, but the story has changed from a family struggle into a corporate expansion plan today. Please share your thoughts in the comments on whether you believe in meritocracy or the importance of family inheritance. The old money lesson from the Dobson family is that a promise can build an institution, but scale requires capital. Their expert recommendation would be to build a moat of cultural identity that is so strong it becomes a treasure. They proved that a widow refusal to sell can outperform the collective wisdom of the entire banking and legal industry. However, we must also recognize that mortality is the one force that no founder can plan for in their strategy. Harmon's big year ended in a plane crash, but Grace, 40 years, turned that tragedy into a regional cultural powerhouse. The architectural synthesis of their life is a story of stubbornness, discipline, and the difficult choice of the ultimate sale. This strategic analysis is for educational and reference purposes only from a historical perspective, and not as financial advice today. We must all decide if we are building a business to keep or building a machine to sell eventually now. The orange stripes still stand as a testament to a promise kept for 52 years of incredible family growth. If the product is the soul, then the brand remains fine because the burgers are still fresh and quite big. If the story is the soul, then something was lost in 2019 that no amount of equity can replace. The story was always about a widow who refused to let go of a dead man dream despite the pressure. We thank the Dobson family for their example of resilience and for showing us the power of a single will. Thank you for joining us on Old Money Habits 7 to explore the hidden structures of the world's greatest fortunes. Let us continue to learn from these high-level strategies as we strive to improve our lives together every day.